So Texas has this process. I call it the bitch down. Why? Because it's that offensive. It's also something you might call the Lady Ferguson scam. I've described this before. The understanding is that these jackasses in Texas, basically the Ku Klux Klan, has this conceptualization that somehow, there's this history of this governor that got busted. He got impeached, and after he got impeached, he wasn't able to run for office or be in office. But his wife ended up becoming governor after him. And some people would make these statements that he was basically her head. And I think now it kind of translates into he's driving her car around. She's the vehicle, she's the car, but he's really driving. And I think this fits nicely into how spent the Lyndon Johnson era, especially. That these guys in Texas cut all of these deals using the State Department as cover via the gas and oil sector, and they like to play submarine commander. Now, at some point last year, I recently discovered they made Ted Cruz the Senate pro tem. It was supposed to be a temporary thing. I don't think it was temporary. I think it's part of the bitch down. And I also think it's part of this situation that Texas has that I imagine, I think it's gone back a while. It goes all the way back to the Constitutional Convention, where Texas likes to fancy that somehow it's enabled or allowed to proxy as if it is actually Washington, D.C., almost like it is the Black Ops Center. In case something happened to D.C., then they've got like an alternative right here in Texas. The problem is that it's not only 100% unconstitutional, but they're literally the Ku Klux Klan. They're literally the invisible empire. They literally play out this scheme where they bind you with acts of securities fraud and dark magic and this complete misrepresentation of whatever they thought their Masonic legacy is and whatever they consider to be acknowledging the Texas Constitution's requirement that you acknowledge a higher being as part of your freedom of worship, which, by the way, is also supposed to be connected with a refusal to privilege any sect. However, this has been allowed to proliferate to diabolical levels. I've been watching it the entire time I've been here. There's a reason why the Lady Justice on the Capitol building in Austin does not wear a blindfold. And there's a reason why she has her sword and the star the way she does. The problem is that because of the Texas bitch down, it's very difficult to get any man to take a woman seriously. This has been demonstrated over and over and over again. And in the process, the acts of anti Semitism and anti Irish vitriol are allowed to go completely unchecked. Now, I don't understand why Texas and Israel are allowed to have whatever kind of strategic relationship they are. I imagine there are people in Israel who think that for whatever reason, based on their state status, I guess that they're entitled to be anti Semitic as part of a secret small cabal against other Jews they don't like. I don't know. That's not my concern. But what is my concern is that right now, this has gone way too far. If they thought that they were going to continue playing out this paradigm where people who are brokers or lawyers try on the wives of people from other countries who have been sanctioned, especially people that have had their securities licenses pulled, or people that might be in important government roles in countries that are sanctioned allegedly because they did something wrong. And then they have their wives, including their wives who may be lawyers or might be in the financial sector or might just be their first lady, play around as if they're that other person's wife so that they can torture him and sabotage his capacity. Or if she happens to be herself in political office, that they swap their wives' purses out with hers, try to drive her vehicle around, try to normalize people into accepting this as what, statecraft? You gotta screw your way up the chain of command before you get acknowledged, and if you don't, you just get bitch down. Now, I've seen Texas do this to its own women. When Marilyn Houston did that little crap with Donald Trump before he was even inaugurated, I believe. This was an example. And it was a very, very bad example. And it should have been repudiated. At every stage, we need to repudiate these excuses for male bodied carbon based matter to think they're entitled to try to inscribe this contrivance of female expression that cedes to and kowtows to the most base and degraded representations not only of women but also of men. What kind of men allow themselves to be in political paradigms with women that perform in such a manner? Exaggerating your sensuality as a way to try to impress somebody with your assertiveness, while also refusing to call out the acts of sexual violence and sexual exploitation that are underwriting your political paradigm, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on. Allowing for the violent sexual exploitation of other women that don't fit into your perception of appropriate class status paradigm, and then trying to justify it for some sort of political rationale, but especially from the perspective of some sort of religious persecutorial lens that you think entitles you to sacrifice other people for your political expediency is contemptible. It is obsolete. You have no right to gamble with the livelihoods of people in your jurisdiction in order to cover up for your criminality and then say somehow you have some divine intervention providing a cover for you. I'm very disappointed that I'm in Texas, to be honest with you. I believe I actually have a legacy. I have a family legacy. It goes all the way back. But this is completely contemptible. Nobody seems to have called out how during the Trump administration, there is a massively disproportionate representation of people from both the state of Virginia and the state of Texas in what should otherwise be key security roles that are repeatedly disabused. Why is this? Why has nobody called this out? I find it personally insulting. I also find it personally insulting that Texas has the kind of consideration of financiability for political operators that it does, and that it feels it's okay not only to swap their wives' purses out, but their children's.